All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the second Sounds of Stasis podcast. We're actually renaming our podcast to Project Sidebar. So, welcome to the first official Project Sidebar podcast. Today, we have joining us again, we have our returning guest, Adrian Gannon, and he is joined by his brother, Keiran Gannon. Keiran, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself, what your music tastes are, things like that?
Um, Today we're going to talk about a lot of our musical inspirations and stuff like that. But just to get started, I can just kind of go over my music story. I mean, really, it started out simply. Ironically, when I was younger, I was like genuinely like I didn't really listen to music like ever. Like, it was on the radio, like typical stuff like that. Despite my dad being like a huge music buff, having like lots of crazy classic rock, a lot of out there stuff. I mean, like I don't know what you called indie in the 70s, but something like that.
It was a lot of psychedelic rock in our house growing
Psychedelic,
up.
yeah.
That sounds about
the
right.
good
Jimi
word for
Hendrix,
it.
Grateful Dead.
Well, those are
Pink Floyd,
certain,
kind of like
Ones
that.
of the Beatles albums were kind of psychedelics.
but
Oh, yeah.
anyway, from that point on, really, wasn't really interested in music, and after like 2014, moved down to North Carolina. Started middle school and just sitting around all day in public school. As most people know, there's not a lot to do but listen to music these days. So I got into it. I started out with some pretty entry level stuff to say. Loved Weezer when I was younger, was really into like Weezer. And I think they're a great band to get started with, like, I don't want to say real music because that's kind of a pretentious statement, but it's
The good
I'd
stuff.
say it's rock. It's good stuff, and it's really good for people who aren't like niche into it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And that really led to Weezer, led to the Chili Peppers,
Mm.
and Chili Peppers from there just kind of exploded until I started listening to like old soul from the 70s to like some like intro metal and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, so you
Um,
went on the right path.
yeah. And then for a long time, Led Zeppelin became like my favorite band of all time. 2 years in a row on Spotify. It was like my number one band. Only listened to them. I just love them. Something about it just like spoke to me. I ended up doing like a lot of research into the band and stuff. But yeah, from there, more recently, I've actually gotten really into funk, specifically a band called Wolfpack.
Mm.
Uh, they're they're getting bigger. They're getting bigger, but
Yeah, we
what's
actually talked
interesting
about them
is
a little bit on our first podcast. Adrian had mentioned their live sessions from Madison Square Garden.
oh
Um,
yeah,
yeah, honestly,
that's
some
about right.
really good stuff right there. Yeah, absolutely loved it.
But that honestly, as I play a lot of instruments. I mean, not a lot of instruments. I dabble on piano, but what I really play is bass, guitar, and drums.
Mm.
And every single way, why I really fell in love with that band, it inspired me to genuinely be a better musician. I looked at their guitarist Corey Wong, incredible guy. Adrian might have already talked about him as
Mm-hmm.
well, but it's just the technique and the sound and the funk and the feel of the music is really, especially on drums, it's really pushed me to try and attain for something I know I could never reach or might never reach.
Mm-hmm.
For fast funky, their drummer, he's not their main drummer, but they've collaborated on him, collaborated with him a lot, especially on a side project they have called Fearless Flyers, which is purely instrumental funk, really, really, really stripped down stuff. But he is insane, can play as fast as he decides to in his head with almost no effort. Really, really insane. And that's kind of inspired me for the drums. Almost one of those things that it's like I'd like to work towards this, but we'll see how far we get. But it
Oh,
definitely made
I
me
totally
better
get
trying to
that.
track for it.
Yeah, that's kind of the way we about well most guitarists will feel when it comes to learning things like math rock and all the insane techniques that come along with it. It's we hope we'll get there one day, but we'll just see how far
Yeah,
it takes
we'll
us.
see. We'll see how far we get. But
But just to give you guys a little bit of background with Keiran, he actually has been a collaborator for Sounds of Stasis for a while. So it's good to finally have him here. He actually did help with a lot of the writing for our drum line for the song Echoes. So thank you again for doing that, Keiran, and helping out there. And really looking forward to a lot of new projects actually with the both of you, considering Adrian will be more of a regular collaborator. Um, So, anyways, today we're going to be talking about a couple things. We have talking about our favorite bands pre 2000. We have our favorite cover songs we're going to be going over, and our favorite lyric line. So, just to get the ball rolling, Adrian, how about you tell us a little bit about your favorite pre 2000s bands?
So, David, we had to discuss earlier my Switch, and I'm coming up for a loss for the first one, but one of them is Pearl Jam. Recently, as we talked about in my previous episode, I moved to Texas, and now I'm back in North Carolina, actually, in this second episode.
Yeah, he
So,
moves every time we see him. Next time, you never know where he's going to be.
yeah, next time I'm going to be in New Jersey, actually. So.
That's the dream.
Yeah, so Pearl Jam lately, I don't know what it is about them. They have this like arena rock thing that's going on. But then it's also Eddie Vedder has like these sort of pop hooks and choruses, and so it fits really nicely. And I've been really digging Pearl
Yeah,
Jam lately.
almost best of both worlds there, huh?
Yeah, so even I'm working on a project right now, and I'm just trying some different tunings, some different techniques that the Seattle grunge sound brings to the table. So Pearl Jam's definitely been an inspiration there. I love Eddie Vedder's singing and what he does, the harmonies that he puts into like songs like Jeremy and Black, and just he's got like an iconic voice, kind of like him and Chris Cornell. Is like those two voices are probably. When you hear grunge, it's like it's either him or him.
Yeah, honestly, the other day I was listening to Black. I had it on like repeat for I don't even know,
I love that.
probably like 5 or 6 hours. I was just listening to it, like just what a song. Honestly,
I listened to that song so much in my freshman year of high school that it lost its meaning. Now when I hear it, it's like, yeah,
just takes you right back to freshman
year. I
enjoyed
this song too much in one sitting, and now it's kind of there. One day I'll listen to it all the way through again, but
well, it's a song.
Pearl
It's a
Jam's
mood.
definitely been it for me. Pre 2000. I mean, I got so many bands that I could talk about right now, but I just wanted to highlight them today just because of how much I've been listening to them and how much of an effect they've had on my guitar playing. Anybody that's heard me play guitar knows that I'm more oriented in funk and soul, but I'm moving towards sort of a punk rock / grunge kind of a sound right now. The new wave of my music playing. I'm 20 since January 12th, and so now I'm kind of I'm 20 now. I'm trying to grow up and move out and branch out into some different territories. So Pearl Jam has been the proper motivation for me lately. And Eddie Vedder, when they brought him into Pearl Jam and his voice got in there, I mean, they even a lot of people, a lot of younger people, I should say, they think about the 90s and like, oh, what did the 90s have to offer? And everybody thinks about Nirvana, but actually 90 is when Nirvana came out and Pearl Jam almost immediately outsold them, which should be no surprise there.
Yeah, I've heard
not
Pearl
knocking
Jam.
Dave Grohl though, because I love Dave Grohl.
Foo Fighters is like Foo Fighters
is awesome. For me,
episode.
It's like Nirvana is such a waste of time because like how can you take the front? Now hearing Foo Fighters and seeing what Dave Grohl does, you can't put him in the back now. He can't not be the front man. He's a better front man than Kurt Cobain was. No disrespect.
What I have to say about Nirvana really is I think a lot of people are into them who don't necessarily get them. And I know that statement sounds like terribly ironic because people are like say they're into them because they get Nirvana and they get the whole thing and they're into the anguish and the grunge sound. But it's like the type of fans they have today are not the fans they had back then. It's a lot of young kids that get into Nirvana like so intensely, and it's almost like it's one of those fandom obsessions that's not really into the music as much as you're into the idea of them. And that's when the music gets lost in there, and that's when you get the fans who know 3 songs and just are obsessed with the look, and honestly, like wearing t-shirts with eyes crossed out smiley face and don't even look at the words beneath it. So
no, it's definitely, and I mean, 2 friends of mine, Haley and Hunter Parsons, they sat me down and, I can be kind of a music snob sometimes. So they sat me down and were like, no, we're going to listen to Nirvana. You're going to get it. And there was a couple of lyrics that Kurt Cobain wrote about him being homeless. And, you think about, homelessness and hunger in America. And a lot of time you think of minorities. Yeah. But here's this white guy with blonde, long hair, good looking guy that was homeless and addicted to drugs and was dealing with a lot. So the lyrics behind there, that's what I think you can appreciate about Nirvana. Their sound was unique, but it was like, yeah, you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
But definitely if you haven't done research on Kurt Cobain and Nirvana and their story, I would highly suggest that you do that.
Yeah, don't get me wrong about what I was saying. Is I think their music does speak to them on a level that it's more of the lyrics that speak to them rather than the music. And what they're into is the idea that the lyric represents. And I'm not necessarily down on that, but I don't consider it, as musicians, that's not really necessarily the name of the game. And inspiring people is great, but when you're thinking about, talking about greatest musicians, when we're talking about poets, that's when they shine.
Yeah, 100%. But granted, even music itself, it would, like, let's say I can listen to an instrumental song all day and be completely moved by just somebody's extreme talent. But then lyrics do bring music together. They help it hit home a little more than let's say just an instrumental song would. Um, but 100% do agree, when it comes to a musician's journey, we all strive to just be better at our own craft. So whether that be guitar, bass, drums, whatever we're playing, it really is just a constant working at our own instrument so that we can constantly be improving and being the best musician that we can be. So I 100% agree with that. But Adrian, I know you mentioned also Chili Peppers. How about you talk a little bit about them?
Chili Peppers. Speaking of white guys addicted to drugs. So the Chili Peppers. So Chili Peppers. So my Instagram handle is guitar. I pushed the whole image of Adrian playing the guitar, but actually in the 5th grade is when I really started taking music seriously. So a little bit about me. My dad ended up having to go away for medical reasons when I was young. And before he left, he made me pick up band. And I wanted to play saxophone so bad. I was just like jazz. I mean, like some fusion stuff you can do with the saxophone. I don't know what it was about the saxophone. It just fascinated me. And my dad always played bass and guitar. So I was like, if I play those, it's going to be like, oh, it's not going to be a surprise. So I didn't take saxophone. I was not allowed.
I remember the first time
he made me go on bass. I did have the saxophone for like 3 days. And then I learned to do my ABCs with it. It sounded horrible.
That was loud. That's a loud instrument right there. Like,
it sure is.
The whole town. I mean, you know how small Forum Park is. The whole town heard.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So
they're feeling it.
So the 3 days later, my dad's like, "Nah, man, sorry, you're playing bass." So I don't know if I have it in the room. It's sitting right over there. Went to Guitar Center over off of where is that guitar? It's over near Hillside. That Guitar Center off, I think, is that Route 22.
I think I've been there.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, so me and my dad went over there, and with my aunt's help financially, we went and we bought my first bass guitar and my first guitar strap, which are both just sitting right over there chilling. I still use it to this day, and bass is actually my first instrument. Piano I did take, but I got sick, and we talked about that last episode, and I stopped playing piano. So really, I consider myself to be a bass player. It just comes down.
No wonder you're into Red Hot
Chili Peppers. So yeah. So that being said, Flea was like, man, how is he? And there was an interview.
Such a beast.
I think it was on. Yes, it was on James Corden's Late Late Show where they do the carpool karaoke, and he did it with the whole band of Red Hot Chili Peppers, not with.
Oh wow! Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, great episode. But if you haven't seen it, go check it out.
Oh, that was
seriously, awesome. That was awesome.
So, Flea, James Corden complimented Flea and said, when you're on the stage and you're playing bass, you can't tell where the guitar ends and you begin. And for anybody who plays bass, that's such a compliment, because when it comes to playing bass, a lot of people that when you're on bass, it's just like you're playing, 1, 2, or 3 and 4, and it's just really simplistic. But when you can stand out that much on the bass, like when you can become iconic on a bass guitar, then you're really doing all the right things.
Yeah, it's basically when. It's basically when your bass, or when a bass player stops becoming more of a percussionist and more of a instrumentalist. That's really
exactly.
What
that's what it is. Flea, and my friend Hunter, whom I mentioned, he's also a bass player. He takes a lot of inspiration from Primus. That like '90s bass focused punk funk rock.
Oh yeah,
is so cool. And I've taken a lot of inspiration from Flea as far as his slapping techniques, his whole idea behind the bass, because when Flea and Anthony Cletus met, Anthony was actually not interested at all in becoming a part of a band. Like like Red Hot Chili Peppers wasn't even on his radar. He was going down to these rap competitions because hip hop had just come out on the scene in the late '80s. So he was trying to become a rapper. He's trying to go toe to toe with like Biggie, Tupac, all those guys. But then he met Flea, and they had gone to school together, and he's like, let's try this out. So he combined the '90s era hip hop with punk rock, and it exploded. I mean,
and that's how we have the music that we all know and love today.
'90s is grunge, but like on the other side of that coin, Red Hot Chili Peppers. That's the '90s and the early 2000s.
When we're talking about amazing bassists, and I know this isn't necessarily pre-2000s, but you may have even mentioned it last episode, but just a quick little off turn to Wolfpack Joe Dart time. Their bass player, Joe Dart.
We did talk about Joe Dart.
The most, and I hate to say it, but he's the most incredible bass player I've ever heard. And I would give a kidney to see a bass battle between Flea and Joe Dart. Maybe not even a battle, them just playing together. They just
honestly, that would be amazing.
Here's the thing. When I was younger, it's like when two kids are arguing about whose dad is stronger. When you have an idol and when you idolize somebody, or you have a hero, I should say, you want to defend them. And so I got into the habit of saying, oh, Jimmy Page is what I was into Led Zeppelin, so Jimmy Page could play circles around Jimi Hendrix. Not true at all. But I was defending who I like. So in that conversation, I think they're just two different styles. Joe Dart with the 16th notes is off the freaking chain. And when you're talking about being in the pocket, because Jack Stratton's whole thing with Wolfpack was simplistic funk. That's not what Red Hot Chili Peppers do.
Low volume funk.
Yeah, that's what they do. That's what they do. That's his craft. Right. So Chili Peppers, just different genre altogether, and definitely one of my favorite. I mean, every album that they've had, I've listened to. High school was Van Halen, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Pearl Jam, and Weezer. That was my life. So,
100% get that. Well, thank you very much, Adrian, for helping us to see the bands that you're interested in. I'm going to talk a little bit about two bands that were super influential for my life. Honestly, when my favorite pre-2000s bands, have to first give my shout out to Journey. I actually just recently purchased the Greatest Hits album on vinyl, because how could I not? Saw it over at Best Buy. I just said, you know what? That's a purchase that needs to happen now. Because
it sounds better on vinyl. Honestly,
oh well, of course, vinyl's the right way to listen when it comes down to it.
Sometimes it feels disrespectful streaming, to be honest with you. There's so many, especially knowing how bad it is for artists.
I literally stream albums that I have on vinyl. I'm too lazy to plug in my
I go both ways, because let's say I own every Paris vinyl, and for me it's I do like listening to it on vinyl because there's such a nice classic feel to it, but then at the same time I can't go knowing I have the album on vinyl and I just decided I'm gonna listen to it in my headphones on Spotify or something. To me, honestly, end of the day, it ends up having to be so that's where I'm at with
you know what? Next time I'm at your house, we're listening to Aka on vinyl. No questions asked.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And I got it right that time, I think.
Yep. Yeah, you did. Honestly, that is such a hard abbreviation. But anyways, getting back to Journey. Yeah.
Vinyl's the way to go. When you have somebody over the house yeah, I like music. Oh, check out all my vinyls. You want to listen to one? And once they're gone, it's oh god. So messy.
Sometimes you get the extreme vinyl heads there. But getting back to Journey, honestly, Journey, the Greatest Hits album was one of the first albums that I was introduced to when it came to my getting into what we can, what is called rock music. And without it, I don't think I would be where I am in a rock/pop punk band style thing. I wouldn't have gotten into music the way I am today. I mean, you think about the tracks that came with this. Of course, there's the overplayed "Don't Stop Believing," which kind of gets me annoyed sometimes because it's every Glee episode.
Oh my god!
But then you get into the raw stuff like Lights, that. That's where I really think Steve Perry and the rest of the band they shined. They knew what they were doing when they were writing all this music. So
crisp vocals, the care. I mean, each note that he plays, each hammer, each pull off, every lick that he plays on that rhythm guitar. Because honestly, for me, when I'm listening to older music, because they don't have it much anymore, you still have bass, whether it's on an 808 or you have an actual bass player in the studio playing. rap, what's considered pop music now, because there's so much trap and rap that's like kind of, it's everywhere now. You can't get away from it in the music industry now. And there's not much rhythm guitar and a real live electric bass. That to me was what made 70s and 80s as far as music. And Journey always had that going for them. I like Lights, great guitar solo, but like the rhythm of Lights, just perfect.
They knew it was up. And then I have to also say my other favorite band from pre-2000s, Queen. 100% can't love them enough.
Okay, we're gonna need to put a cap on this conversation because there's so much to talk about here.
Yeah, we're gonna try to get through this in a couple minutes here.
Queen is so good for so many reasons. It's just kind of like you just have to say the name. It's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah.
It's just the personalities, because I grew up listening to Queen, same as you, same as everybody else that listens to music. But I never appreciated their story until the movie came out. Watching that movie, because Freddie Mercury was never part of that. Never part of that. He just kind of inserted himself in that, and he has just this loud personality. Like, he's almost diva, but not really diva. You know what I mean? Like, in the way he controlled the crowd. He actually, a lot of the reason why I like Wolfpack is because Theo Katzman and Jack Stratton have that kind of like grab the crowd, energy that Freddie Mercury had. So Queen, I think my favorite Queen. I don't even know if I can say that.
It's hard to pick. That's what it comes down to. I will say this, that my absolute favorite song by Queen is actually done because of the instrumentals. The song Innuendo that Queen put out. The lyrics in itself, honestly, to me, it was one of those songs that was it was a decent listen. But when you get to that guitar solo where they start out with a nice Latin guitarist and he's going crazy. But then they just decide, you know what? We're going to do that same thing, that same technical, impossible ability to play Latin guitar, and we're going to throw that with some overdrive and make it our solo. That, by far, took the cake for any music as far as Queen made, because it was just so, like, perfect, honestly, the way that they came out with it. Of course, have to give your little shout outs to Bohemian Rhapsody, because how can you?
Yeah, I was actually just about to say, I was just about to make a point about Bohemian Rhapsody and how I think, I don't really like saying this kind of stuff, but
arguably the best song ever written.
Okay, that's actually not what I was going to say. But what I was going to say is I think that song has an effect on people. I think that song, hearing that song makes you want to be yourself, because it's such a weird song. Like,
it really is
such a weird song. Yet somehow everybody knows all the lyrics and is in love with it.
I mean, how can you not take a car ride and expect not to just blast that and sing every part?
But I think the thing about Bohemian Rhapsody is that it has this pop ballad thing going on with the piano. Because as you see, if you go ahead and if you haven't seen it, I know that there's a lot of politics involved with that movie that people were worried about. Like, is it going to be in your face with sexuality or what? And I'm not going to get into that, but it's not. There's very little nods to that. Freddie Mercury as a person was not into divulging that information. So watch it because it's a lot about the band and the history there, not just going to other stuff.
And if you don't watch it for anything else, watch the last 20 minutes of it where they do the that concert at the very end. Live Aid. That, I mean, I will watch that on repeat over and over and over again, because wow, I
love the way they recreated the arena. Wembley Arena.
I think so. Yes.
I don't know how they did that.
It was so good, honestly. But anyways,
I think what they did is they recorded a crowd and then they just copied and pasted it, and but regardless, beautiful scene. They redid it perfectly. Could not have picked a better actor to play Freddie Mercury.
Honestly, they did really well.
Yeah. But what did I want to say? Just Queen and just so when you take a look at eras of music, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, for me, those are the eras that really made what modern music's going to be considered for the next 2 centuries, because everything else it wasn't there yet. Some of the technology wasn't there, 70s and 80s, and a lot of the artists in the 70s got left behind. Like, great example of that would be the Jackson 5. Jackson 5 were huge. They were up there with James Brown. They were enormous.
Yeah.
But they left behind. Michael Jackson was like, sorry, bros, I got to leave y'all behind so I can do my thing again. And did. And got to tip your hat. But Queen was in the 70s and the 80s. as well. They were just as influential in the 70s as they were in the 80s. And be able to transcend that was amazing. And not only that, but their one song, Bohemian Rhapsody, if you think about it, they released Bohemian Rhapsody, hit song.
Yeah.
Hit song. They released it. Then they came back and they played it and made it popular again at Live Aid.
Yeah,
Then
honestly,
in
Queen
the
knew what was
90s,
up.
Wayne's World made it popular again, okay?
Yep.
And everybody in the 90s knew what it was, okay? Then
It's
maybe the 90s,
it's a song that transcends
have
time.
kids, you know, like my parents, maybe the kids I went to school with didn't know what it was, but I knew what it was because my parents didn't know what it was.
And then let me speak on something that you guys may not
Please do
necessarily be as attuned to. As embarrassing as this is, I'm still in high school, not for long, and may never be again because of the pandemic. But there is a new scene of kids who are falling in love with all of the music we're talking about: Queen, Led Zeppelin,
Chili Peppers, Journey,
Nirvana, and it's these kids that just come out here. And, you know, some of them are finding out from their parents, some here and there. A lot of them are discovering it on their own. And what I'm interested in is the next generation of musicians. Because right now we're in a pretty weird space. Somehow rap, which used to be rap or trap or R&B or whatever the genre it is that you want to refer to, went from something like almost like indie. That was very niche. Not a lot of people, you know, were into it. It wasn't mainstream. It just wasn't mainstream. And it just blew up out of nowhere. And now it's surpassed almost every other genre. You know, it's pop and rap that are working it right now. But there's these kids walking around high school with their earbuds constantly, wearing flannels, listening to music that they should have no reason to be into, that they have no connection to. Yet they're finding these connections from family, whether on their own. And what I'm interested in is the next generation of musicians who were born from that said no to listening to the pop then. And hopefully them taking it back again one day and putting love into the music and making, you know, I'm not saying that rock is better, but I want to see what they make. And I think we're actively taking a part in making that happen. You know, regardless of how big our effect is, we're trying, you know?
No, we are. And I think that so I've been pretty vocal in high school and vocal now when somebody asks me about Billie Eilish or some of these other artists that I'm not really, I don't agree with them in terms of what they're doing, what they represent. Like for me, I feel like if you are a musician, because there's thousands of musicians out there that have the talent and the skill and the artistry to do what anybody else is doing. It's just a matter of some people get stardom and some people don't.
And it's a lot easier to do it in pop.
Exactly. My thing is is for artists like Billie Eilish, she's the example I'm going to use because I've been vocal about this. What irritates me about her is I know she has the talent, but she's singing about stuff and people will argue that, oh, you just don't understand. But I really feel like I do understand. She's got a responsibility right now. She has the talent and she's in the limelight right now. She has a responsibility to herself and to the music industry to steer it back in the right direction. Instead of just, because what's so hard right now is if you could have a genuine sound. I feel like with Sounds of Stasis, with Avenue K, with some of the stuff I've been working on, we have a genuine sound. It's homegrown. We made it up. We created it. We're not going along with what's going on right now with all this rap and trap that's going on right now. I don't agree with that. And I feel like people that are in the limelight now, they need to steer it right back in the right direction. And that's where I'm interested because I want there to be a generation, you know, when I have kids, I want them to say, hey, Dad, listen to this new guy. And I want to hear it and be like, okay, there we go. That's a song. He's playing the guitar. He made that. He didn't pay some other musician $6,000 for a beat so that he could rap over it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So,
and to take that same thought, we're actually going to take this as a little bit of a segue just to get into when it comes to that thought of real music. We're going to go back to Keiran now. What were your favorite pre-2000s bands?
So this is a really difficult question. And ironically, honestly, me and Adrian initially chose the same two bands. And it may not because I enjoy their music the most, which maybe I do. It's so hard to say. It's not something to say. What's your favorite food? It's the point is I think these are probably some of the two most important bands from before. And one we've said the name a million times, which is Led Zeppelin. I'll talk about them first. Led Zeppelin is like, I think they say rock and roll came back from like early blues and stuff like that, and there's like a lot of history and stuff.
I think, well, yeah, let's have that inspiration.
Yes, but I think Jimi Hendrix invented like what rock really is, what rock came to represent, which is just intensity, loudness, like speech. Like Jimi Hendrix is what almost honestly inspired my guitar playing, which ironically, when I was younger, I actually said I didn't like him. I was like, I did too. I don't really like this music. It's weird and kind of loud.
It actually took me a while too to get into him. I'm not gonna lie.
I remember my dad, we used to drive a truck for Ferguson, and Keiran was probably an infant. I ran out to see my dad, and he picks me up, and we sit in the cabin in the truck, and we're listening to what's the album? Can't think of the album, but it's Jimi Hendrix, the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Access Bold as Love. We're listening to it, and the very first track, I don't know if you've listened, listeners, I don't know if you've heard the very first track, but it's like it's an artistic kind of thing he does, and it's literally Jimi Hendrix on a talk show, and he starts talking about like he was on crack. Okay, that's the best way I can describe it. But I was like, what is this? I just didn't understand it then, and I understand it now. And yes, his sound, it was just like, okay, if you look at what's going on in the 60s, right, and the 50s, even before that, nothing had come. The most interesting thing that had happened was the Beatles, and I'm not knocking the Beatles because they are huge inspirators for me, but just Jimi Hendrix did something. I mean, the man lit his guitar on fire on stage.
But he was definitely an icon. But let's get back to Zeppelin, because I mean, how could we not?
So the reason I brought up Jimi Hendrix is, first of all, he inspired me so much and really helped form my sound playing guitar. I think he inspired Led Zeppelin. Like, he started what modern rock was on its way to becoming.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who took that idea and just did something with it. Did something, not what he did, but something different. There's so many good Led Zeppelin songs, and sometimes going back and listening to it, it's not what you expect. You think certain songs like Black Dog, one of the first songs I learned how to play guitar, you think it's so heavy, but going back to listen to it, it's got
it's kind of got a lot compared to what I listen to now. And it's not like, it doesn't hit for me now like it used to hit for me.
But it hits in a different way, which is not intensely, this is crazy.
It's almost like a half nostalgia, half great. Yeah.
It just feels quality. And that's what I'll say about Led Zeppelin. For a while I did so much research into their origin, their history, stuff like that. Their drummer really inspired me drumming, John Bonham. Some of the crazy things he would do. And what seemed like for him, which I still can never really figure out, is he did so many technical things. And I don't know whether he played loud, it was his playing style that communicated that he didn't play technical. Or maybe it was the fact that he invented some of the technicality in rock drumming just by doing what sounded good to him.
Yeah.
The sound is loose. The sound is loose and not put together, and the mixing is intense and rough and hard.
Yeah.
But in the center of it, there's heart, and there's skill, and there's talent, which is foreshadowing, by the way. We'll get to that.
Yeah, right.
But if you listen to like the song "Good Times, Bad Times," it's like bass drum work. Like, that doesn't feel technical when you listen to it, but you could just feel the skill. Skill, also the devotion. A lot of musicians these days, some of them become like masterful, like incredible artists that could do whatever. But playing music as fast as you can just from a page doesn't make it good. But playing with feel, the fact that he didn't play it perfectly, and the fact that his drums were mixed to be loud, and it wasn't the smaller modern drums we're used to hearing, is what makes it sound just different. It's what felt like talent. It's how you know that this was something new. It was unrefined, yet so pure and hard. And that really spoke to me. And some of the stuff Jimmy Page would do is going to guitar, from drums to guitar. I don't know if you ever listened to Led Zeppelin live, but his Heartbreaker solo live from the album, it's one of their only live albums on Spotify that I found that's complete, called How the West Was Won, I think.
Yeah.
But he has a guitar solo for Heartbreaker on that, which goes on forever. And it's got the same thing as John Bonham on the drums. It's got that really looseness, but a hint of technicality, like he knows what he's doing. And if you look into Jimmy Page and do some research on his history, he used to play this really really weird style of almost, I could say it was like close to bluegrass. And as soon as it started, it died, and it became like rock and roll soloing. But it was like this crazy, like country sounding, and he's
so
from England.
So many different inspirations.
But he went crazy when he was a kid, and they asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up. I think he said he wanted to be an astrophysicist, not a rock musician. It kind of reminds of Brian May.
Honestly, I've seen so many people that, like, they have like such mental talent for all these different sciences, and yet they decided to make music, and these are some of the people that just make some of the most amazing music at the end of the day.
Back to the Heartbreaker solo. Here's what I found so interesting about it. And his guitar playing, despite being as heavy as he is, there is classical elements. I'm talking classical music, talking violin, Bach, Beethoven music. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you can hear that, and hearing that is so insane. It's like, how does that come from? How do you incorporate that? How does it work so well? And how did you get to that? Because we were surprised to find out your origins were some weird country style of music that died as soon as it started. And then you went to becoming one of the greatest rock musicians of all time. Yet somehow you threw some classical music in there. And that's something that inspired me, is that having so many different influences. When I was younger, I've almost forgot about this myself. It feels so long ago. But I enjoyed classical music. I was an avid listener to classical music. I used to actually go to classical music concerts.
Yeah, our Aunt Barbara is big into classical music. She thinks it. Her whole thing is expanding the mind, and
love it.
So that's,
honestly, I'm 17 years classically trained into piano, so I mean, I totally understand it.
And I do sometimes when we do the volunteer work. I was in a car group with a friend of mine, Scott Quinn, amazing guitarist. What he'll do is just in the background, he'll play. And it's not loud, it's very like background, like you almost struggle to hear it, but what he was saying, he's like, do this as a guitarist, put on classical music, put it low, and you hear stuff all day long. You hear sounds, this, that, everything's going into your subconscious. And then one day when you're sitting in your jam with your buddies and you're playing guitar, maybe you're not paying attention and something comes out,
you end
something
up
that inspired from a piece written by Bach from years and years and years and years ago, before anybody was born. And that is just ingenious. And I think that's back to what Keiran's talking about with Led Zeppelin. That's what I love about Led Zeppelin. All the different inspirations from John Paul Jones. Me being the bass guy, let me just talk about John Paul Jones for a minute. John Paul Jones revolutionized the way somebody can play bass. Because before, with like stuff, even not knocking the Beatles again, but even with the Beatles, it was like more simplistic. It was like, I'm going to play this bass line, and I'm going to, here's point A and here's point B. I'm just going to play the 1 and the 2 to get to point B. But John Paul Jones was like, no, I'm going to play the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4 he's going to play every note to get to the start and the end of the bass line. And that's what he did. And that coupled with inspiration from Jimmy Page, and then the unique play style of John Bonham was just ingenious. And then just to throw Robert Plant in there with the insane vocals was Led Zeppelin.
So let me speak on John Paul Jones one more time, who was the bass player for Led Zeppelin, in case you didn't know. So what we've talked about so far, starting with John Bonham, drummer, Jimmy Page, guitarist, and now we're on to John Paul Jones, who's the bass player, who I can't say this for sure because I honestly don't know a lot about him as a person. What I know is his talent, and what he was remembered for was being not like bi-instrumental, tri-instrumental, however you would say it. He played anything and everything unusual. And he played a lot of the keyboard songs. There's a song called, help me out here, Adrian, keyboard, Led Zeppelin song.
No Quarter.
No Quarter. That song was all him. And it's the most intense and insane song. If you've never heard it before, look it up. It's called No Quarter. And it shows his talent, that he's behind the bass, but also some of the I can't tell what his inspiration is from, but it almost seems like he took some of the soul style stuff with the bass. Where instead of playing the bass line, he went in, like nailed it, and just went in, started adding some, different notes, spicing it up, not just playing the notes, which I feel like something has been lost in the rock genre and bass. Not entirely, because when we go back to the 90s, there's some funk bass like that, but he didn't slap the bass ever. Maybe he did, but on Led Zeppelin albums, you're not going to hear slap bass.
Yeah.
Yet he still managed to be so dynamic. And I think that's something people need to rediscover. which another reason I love Wolfpack right there. Of course, they slap the bass, but there's not
so
much.
Joe Dart, I mean, there's a whole song in the performance. Go and watch it. Okay, please. If you watched the last episode and you didn't already do it, please go watch the Wolfpack
live at
Madison Square Garden. You will not be disappointed. Like I'm telling you, this is the single best live show in history.
It's so good. It's so good. But anyway, let's finish up here with Led Zeppelin and move on to the last one. Last one more thing for Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant. We just got to mention him.
Of course.
Writes songs, insane singer, just sounds great. Really crazy, whiny voice. There's plenty of reasons to love him, but the only
really
one
eccentric is
the only one you need to know, the only reason you need to love him or to be interested in him is just listen to the song, listen to the way he goes along with the instruments. We're done. Let's move on to my last artist here. Another foreshadowing thing. The Beatles. Okay?
Yep. Have to mention them.
Now, let me just speak as generally as possible as to not give the same lecture about the Beatles that everyone else has heard. There's a reason they literally created a movie about how awful the world would be without them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you've seen that movie. Not a super big fan of the movie, but the idea is
was that Yesterday, right?
Band was so influential.
There was Yesterday, and then there was I forget what the name of it is.
7 Days a Week.
No, maybe it's called War. It's a Beatles movie from back in the 60s, maybe, because they were all actually, they played themselves. And they just, it talked about a lot of, because in the world in the 60s, you got the Vietnam War, and then there was wars before that. And so they were just promoting a message of peace and love. And they took the entire world and they changed pop music forever.
Here's what makes me sad about the Beatles. I had a kid tell me once, I was talking about the Beatles with him. The only song he knew by them was the Yellow Submarine. Like that was like a stab in the heart.
That breaks my heart.
And that was I think that song became such an icon, but fans almost completely gloss over it because it was at a really weird psychedelical era.
I mean, but I have to say, they were all high on weed when they wrote the song, and so that's what you get when you do drugs. Don't do drugs.
I mean,
kids.
Yeah, basically.
But anyway, there's certain songs of them that I just love. That have you ever heard "Lady Madonna" by the Beatles?
Yes, I have heard.
Yeah. That song is so dynamic and weird and crazy, and it still goes into the psychedelical Beatles that I wasn't trying to talk about. But the White Album too. I don't know if that's on the White Album, but that song just like touches me for some reason. The way they go up and down, it went back into my classical music side that made me appreciate it. And that song is just such a weird song, but some songs are so weird. It's like, like you kind of got to be in the mood to just get it. But this song is just good. Yet it could be so weird. I agree. But it's just good. It's just good. It just is. And there's so many songs like that. I can't talk long enough about the Beatles yet. I need to.
Yeah,
I know, right? We could make this into we could turn this into an entirely different podcast.
The one thing I'll say is to wrap up the whole mini long Beatles segment is just to basically say you can never talk about the Beatles for too long because you just need to listen to them.
Honestly,
you're just going to want to listen to all their songs, and it's a rabbit hole because there's so many good songs and they really did change things. So that's it for the Beatles.
Here's what I want to say about the Beatles is just that I love Paul McCartney and
that's
I love
it
John
for the
Lennon.
Beatles.
I'll give you a minute. How about that?
I just got to say this. They were all individual musicians, and what's so beautiful about what the Beatles did is they wrote their own songs. Sometimes they would write songs together and they put it all out, and it was just this collaboration of musicians all together. They all and what I wanted to say is Paul McCartney and John Lennon are highlighted because obviously probably right up next to Simon and Garfunkel to as a duo of songwriters, incrable. But George Harrison is not. He should not be overlooked ever.
Oh, of course
if
not.
you have the chance to go and look at his solo, go look at all their solo work because further than musicians, they were hippies. They believed in love and peace. They believed in what they were writing. And so please go check out George Harrison's story because he had an incredible journey too. And he was a Beatle. So please.
And we're going to take that as a good time to just take a quick break. For those of you who are listening in on Spotify, we're going to be playing a song from my favorite band. We're going to be playing Lights by Journey. And for those of you who are tuning in on YouTube, we will be putting a link down below. So there you go. Yeah, that's how I want to point. So yeah.
Enjoy the journey.
Oh God.
Okay. All right, and welcome back. We're going to start off with our second segment now. Going into our second question here, we're going to be talking about cover songs. So, Keiran, how about you start us off with your favorite cover song?
This one was such an easy question for me to answer. Such an easy question for me to answer. And, you know, looking through the material we've had sorted for the podcast today, we really do sound like broken records. From the start to the finish, everything we talk about this is the same. But remember when I said foreshadowing earlier? I was talking about Led Zeppelin, and I said Heart, how they have Heart. Okay, well, Heart did a cover of a Led Zeppelin song that you may have heard of called Stairway to Heaven. And I don't know if you heard this cover before, but basically, Led Zeppelin was having the Kennedy Center honors or whatever it is, and they did this performance for that. And it was Heart, but it wasn't just Heart. It was a huge group of people, including
Jason Bonham.
Don't steal my thunder here. Jason Bonham, who's John Bonham's son, who is I believe he's the only non-living member of Led Zeppelin. So it was emotional. He actually cried during the performance. It was incredible. Here's what I will tell you about this performance. Sounds amazing, but you need to watch the performance. So if you're on Spotify right now listening to this, you should stop. You should go to the YouTube version or whatever. Just look up the live Kennedy Center's honors.
Yeah, we'll be
accidentally discovered they did do a studio recording version of this, which does not capture the same magic as that live version. Okay, now that
on Spotify.
Yeah, we'll be putting all of the songs that we're mentioning today into our podcast playlist. So please tune in for that when that gets released as well.
Check it out.
Yeah.
But here's what I have to say about that. I'm establishing context for this because I'm about to just go on a completely emotional delivery of what my mind goes through listening to this.
I love it.
So now that you have the context, this cover is like, in my opinion, and I can't say that for favorite bands ever, favorite pre-2000 bands, that they were my favorite band specifically ever, because I think that's a hard question. And I could never tell you my favorite song, but favorite cover is easy. And I've said it for years. It's this song because it is gorgeous. It does a take on this song. They go crazy when they're doing this. They start out with the acoustic guitar. They build it up slowly. They have a freaking choir to go with them and amazing guitarists. And it's just wild. And all three of us have heard it, but it's really something you can't just talk about. It's an experience.
Yeah.
So much so that it made the guys who made it, Led Zeppelin, who were there watching, cry.
Except for dude, he's too cool to cry. I think he was laughing. Actually, he was smiling. He was and laughing. He was enjoying.
It's a very British moment from him.
Yeah, Robert Plant was bawling, which that also contribute. I mean, it was kind of like Jason was down there playing drums, and it was kind of like I get that was emotional for all of them.
And Barack Obama was there just chilling because it was that good. I was like, look at the president on this. I feel like he should see this.
Don't just watch that song on the Kennedy Center. Watch the whole thing. Jack Black comes out there.
Jack Black hosted the whole thing. Yeah. Did an amazing job.
Jack Black is my favorite Led Zeppelin fan. He is so into. I love Jack Black loves Led Zeppelin like Bruno Mars loves the Jackson Family.
Well, there you go.
It's awesome. So
all right, so let's take this time to move into Adrian, your favorite cover song.
So until today, I actually forgot about this song. But my sophomore year, I had a friend of mine, Thomas. We went to high school together, and he turned me on to the song. Now, I loved Queen, and I was kind of digging punk rock when I was a sophomore. I'm less into it now than I was.
Who wasn't?
But it's like, you know what? I'm in high school. I'm going to embrace the whole Teenage Rebellion thing. And so I listened to Under Pressure by My Chemical Romance, and it is off the chain.
Now
it stays true to the song with also having punk elements, and I'm talking about like what pedals they were using on their guitars, what the sound was. It was My Chemical Romance, but it was still Queen, and it was absolutely brilliant.
I've never actually heard that, so Spotify listeners, after this, I'm gonna be right there with you. Just I might have heard it back in the day when you were like into it, but like
No, it's ingenious. I mean,
see that.
I know David. Is a favorite band of yours.
Absolutely love My Chem. Yeah, I definitely got to check it out for sure. Yeah, My Chem is just such an influential part of my teenage years. So, absolutely love the fact that we have My Chem mixing a little bit with Queen. I mean, how can I not love that? So, I definitely am among or with you guys on that. Going to be listening to that one. I'm going to talk a little bit about my favorite cover song now. Um, so there's this band that's been doing a lot of cover songs recently. They're a newer band, not too many followers, but enough for them to get kind of noticed. Band name is First to 11, and they are just absolutely fantastic. Everything they do. Um, I remember like I was talking to them with Jordan, who couldn't be here today, but we were kind of mentioning a little bit about how all their stuff just kind of sticks to where it needs to be. Like they do nothing wrong. Nothing is over the top to the point where it's like, that's going to be 100% listen for the rest of my life. But I will say the one song that absolutely hit home was their cover of Decode by Paramore. And Decode by Paramore, if for those of you who don't know the song, was one of the songs that was on Twilight. And of course, not that I've ever seen it. It's just, always listen to Paramore.
Catch Black in there,
Yeah,
buddy.
always listen to Paramore. But such a beautiful song. The way it was written, the way it was performed, and on Spotify, unfortunately, the only way you could find it is one live version where Haley's vocals, of course, fantastic as always, but just not at the professional studio recording you want it to be. So that's where First to 11 comes in for me, where it just gives me that opportunity to listen to a song that I could not hear professionally recorded, finally done right. But that's my little shout out for them. Right now we're actually going to take a quick little break, and we're going to be going into we're actually going to take a break, and we're gonna ask Adrian, from your two bands from pre 2000, what would be your top song that you want people to hear between Chili Peppers and Pearl Jam? What would be the top song?
You're hurting my
feelings. I know, right?
You know what, guys? Go listen to Jeremy by Pearl Jam. Please enjoy. I know that I will be enjoying with you as soon as we're done filming this.
Well, there you go. In fact, actually, we're gonna play that for you right now. For those of you who are on Spotify, you're gonna be hearing Jeremy by Pearl Jam, and for those of you who are watching on YouTube, once again, link in description. So, we'll be right back. All right, and welcome back, everybody. So we're going to go into our third segment of the day today. So we're going to be talking about our favorite lyric line from songs. So, Keiran, how about you get us started on your favorite lyric from any song?
Okay. Let me start by saying this is severely, ironic and kind of messed up because I don't really know the original song that this is from. I only know the cover. And I could have perhaps used this as my favorite cover of all time, which, looking back on it, might actually be the truth. But this song is God Bless the Child by Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I don't believe they wrote it, and I don't know how much they changed the song from the original version, which I think they might have.
That was a cover song?
Yes, it was. I think it may be just the best piece of music in existence, to be honest with you. If I had to choose
slow down.
Okay, if I had to choose a favorite song, if somebody had a gun to my head, I might just say that because.
Okay. So tell us about the lyric line.
I do share love for this song, though.
So
we listen to it with Mom all the time.
I literally could. I will never get tired of this song, but the lyrical line here. Let me get this up. The specific part I chose. The whole song is basically about this. It's a gorgeous song, but the song says, "Yes, the strong seem to get more, while the weak ones fade. Simple, short, sweet, true to this very day, true to history." And it's just about how strong people who are ruthless, generally tend to be stronger because being a good person means not taking advantage of people. And if the only people who are willing to take power by taking advantage of people are ruthless naturally, it's just a natural thing. And it's just how the world works for now. And, one day we have hope that that's not going to be the case. We know that's not going to be the case one day. But really, the entire song is about something that I feel I can relate to. And although I've, we as a family, my family's never been dirt poor, never like we've never had to wonder necessarily where our next meal has come from, but we've been pretty freaking close to that. We've been in some really really tough spots, and I feel more than that we understand what it's like, because just like you, we hail from New Jersey, and not being rich in New Jersey, especially the part we're from, is really hard.
Yeah, seriously.
If your dad's not a stockbroker in Morris County, I'm so sorry for you, man.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a hard
you're living
life.
paycheck to paycheck and tough. Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
You better earn that scholarship in sports or something, my friend, or you are in for a rough life.
Honestly.
And the question is, how did we end up there? I think everybody's got their reason for ending up in Morristown, but where we grew up. But it's hard to live there. But basically, the song is about how it's basically about rich and poor relations, and how it's so easy when you're rich, and how like just being rich, like once you have it once, you can abandon it. Like once you lose it, everyone who will abandon you, really. And it's not a dark song. And musically, it represents just it's the most like I want to say like most diverse song ever musically, because I'd say it's some kind of soul, really. And then it goes into these jazzy breaks, like really most like beautiful, intense jazz swinginess. And then it goes into like a Latin break, and it's like mind blown at that point. And then the singer kicks in.
Spinning Wheel by What's Yours?
Yeah, that's their other song. But no, this is God Bless the Child.
Okay, yeah.
And then they stop, and then the singer just goes crazy. He's not some kind of beautiful angel voice singer.
No, but he is though. He's got like
Steely Dan. He's got Steely Dan.
Yeah,
vibes.
but here's the thing. You gotta compare. You can't compare Frank Sinatra to Mariah Carey, but they're two of the most iconic singers in history.
I agree with that.
He has this this voice where you can go on a mic and just sing, and you don't need to edit it. You don't need to double up with harmonies and everything. He just has a voice that's nice.
But the voice communicates the power and the depth and the meaning of the song so well. It's a song that like cuts right into your heart and just finds its way there and never leaves. And it talks about the message of how having money, having anything, you can be abandoned by everyone, but God bless the child who's got his own, who can take care of himself, who can just forget about everyone, what they've done to him, where you've been, where you're going, how having things affected you, the haves, the have-nots. But just God bless the child who's got his own, who can just keep it together on his own. And it's just a beautiful song. I think it's genuinely like a song that can make you cry just listening to it. But,
and what a beautiful lyric line, honestly. Yes, the strong seem to get more while the weak ones fade. It really does hit home. I'm gonna move on to my favorite lyric line. For those of you who know me, Paris is favorite band.
Number one.
At least, yeah. I mean, I can't.
You were just talking earlier about every vinyl you have of theirs.
Yep. Yeah. It's just one. It's one of those. And what I think really speaks to me with Paris is Lynn, the lead singer. She went through a depression around the same time I kind of did. So when she was writing songs about it, I was feeling them, and I understood on a cellular level each one of the lyrics she wrote. The one from wow, What's Wrong by Paris, where it says, "I'm the one I fear the most. Little did I know that I was only crying wolf." Um, to me, that really hit me because that first part, "I am the one I fear the most," really talking about how when you are going through a depression in that sort of way, it's easy to just start feeling like you're your own worst enemy, where every single step you take is the wrong one. Everything you do is just such an issue. And yet, this is where the second part of that lyric comes in. Little did I know that I was only crying wolf. It doesn't, you can start to feel like no matter how many times you cry out for help, it's not there. And when she wrote those lyrics, she was going through her own depression. And I mean, even her music video for it kind of like touches a little bit on that in a very metaphorical way, as most things that Paris does is. But
want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot of when it comes to Paris lyrics and videos, you can watch them over and over and over again and start to go through like a whole list of theories as to what each thing could possibly mean. But as far as this line here, really just kind of spoke to me because I know that when I went through my own thing, it was hard to feel like I could rely on people because I kind of felt like no one would listen. Like I was crying wolf. I mean, this is why even my first song, wow, Kaleidoscope. Wow, almost forgot the name of it. The first song that we released for Sounds of Stasis, we have that idea of in a world of crying wolves. The whole idea of there are so many times where people say things and you don't get recognized, and that's what I loved about this, about the whole album. Honestly, Akana. I don't even want to try to attempt the unabbreviated version of it.
Just stay, breathe slowly now.
Synergize.
But it's just such a great journey throughout somebody who's dealing with depression in that way. So yeah, I have to say that is probably one of the lyric lines that is my favorite, just because of how it is written into the song. How it's not one of those that even takes over the full song. This is a quick lyric that's done real fast, but it just expresses so much emotion so quickly. But anyways, let's go on to Adrian. Please let us tell us about your favorite lyric line and why it speaks to you.
So when I thought about the question, what's my favorite lyrical line? I
feel like this
bounced
is not
around.
to get too deep.
It bounced around like between what is my favorite, because I have favorite songs, but favorite lyrical line, and maybe this isn't really my true favorite lyrical line, but I wanted to share this because if there's any kid out there that just moved from his hometown, and I don't know, I feel like in New Jersey there's such like I don't know if you can have state pride, but I feel like there's such a strong sense of, you know, Jersey tough. You know what I mean?
I feel bad sometimes because it's like we grew up in we struggled in the nice part of New Jersey. Like we really we struggled.
You were like, yeah, you're a minority and you live in Florham Park.
Yeah, that is an oxymoron in itself.
So basically, I moved here to North Carolina. People were calling me a Yankee, this, that, and the other. I just felt completely out of my element and out of place, and I did not feel that. Screw you.
This is where Yankee hat for all
for those of you who are listening in. Yeah, but, Adrian's got a Jets jersey on. I'm wearing my Yankee cap, so that's where that little joke came from.
I felt so out of place, and so full disclosure, I'm kind of like a closet Broadway brat, sort of, kind of. Like I really do appreciate Broadway. I watch more Broadway than it's probably healthy for me to do so, and just musicals in general.
Don't call yourself a closet Broadway brat. Just be like, hey, you know, I do have an appreciation for musicals. Be like, oh yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, you know, me too. I feel that.
But anyway, so my favorite Broadway show is Newsies. Just the Newsies, just it spoke to me on the level of it. Just I feel like in today's world with like there's like not knocking this, but there's like a lot of there's a Me Too movement and everything, and there's a lot of attention on women these days, to the point where I feel like men sometimes get overlooked. Like, oh, they're boys, they're tough, they'll get through it. This focused on teenage boys from the age of like 12 to 18, 19, 20 years old, having to provide for themselves in the late 1890s in New York City. And so this character, Jack Kelly, is the main protagonist of the Newsies. He is leading this battalion of young men to fight the power and to get the money that they deserve because they're being overcharged for their newspapers. And so he leads them, but they get pushed back by the police. And there's the scene where half the kids get sent to this little jail for street kids, basically, called the Refuge. And Jack feels terrible because he feels like he was leading these kids. And I don't know what point in my life I became the older guy, the older brother. People, I've had a couple of, some of my friends' little brothers say, "Oh, I look up to you." I'm like, what?
That was not good
to me. So it's kind of like in the beginning of the song, Santa Fe is Jeremy Jordan's rendition of it, not to be confused with Christian Bale's rendition of it, which was interesting to see Christian Bale in a musical and not that. But he's talking about, everybody trusted Captain Jack, he called himself.
Mm-hmm.
But I let them all down. And he's crying. And so my favorite lyrical line, it says, "Let me go far away, somewhere they will never find me, and tomorrow won't remind me of today." So it just, I was down here. I felt like I was screwing up at school and stuff. I felt like everybody hated me at school, and it was really rough. And I just wanted so badly to go back to New Jersey, where you were, where all my best friends were, where I knew, and just, nothing there is going to remind me of my crappy situation in the here and now. And it just really spoke to me. Jack's character spoke to me because, I felt like I wasn't doing all the right things and people were looking up to me and I was letting them down. And it was this whole big mess. So I really identified with this. And if there's any kids, you're 16 years old, you got no idea what planet you're on and you feel terrible, it's going to be okay.
I have to say, Adrian, the second you said the Broadway brat thing, I knew you were talking about the Newsies because I've seen that as many times as you have, only because of you. And I was expecting something quite disappointing for this segment, but you genuinely shocked me. That was deep, and I am impressed. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, gotta give Adrian a round of applause for that.
And a closing note: if you haven't seen the Newsies on Disney Plus, they have both the '90s theatrical. They did a movie of the Newsies, and then they did the Broadway play. Watch the movie first because there's some roles that are changed in the Broadway play. I personally think the Broadway rendition is much better, but go watch the Newsies movie first from 1999 first, so you don't ruin it. Because both versions if you love that whole like New York kind of a feeling, New York, New Jersey, like I don't know how to describe it, but if you're from New York, New Jersey, or you appreciate the culture up there, you're gonna love this movie. So please go watch it.
One thing I have to say about the differences, a little comic side note. This is pretty funny. If you're watching the original movie and then watch the Broadway play, you're gonna be really thrown off by something because for the main character, he has the character that is a news reporter. Is portrayed
his romantic interest.
So originally in the movie, he's portrayed as I don't know if it was a play before it was a movie.
It was a movie before it was. Yeah, it was a movie and then it was a play. I'm pretty sure.
But anyway, either way, it started out as there's a newspaper reporter who helped them spread their message of the strike. And
in the movie, he was a guy.
He was an older guy. He was like much older than the kids. I don't want to say he was a role model to them. He was more of a role.
He was a role model to Jack, kind of, sort of. He was looking out for Jack.
But he was like an older guy looking out for them. In the Broadway play, he becomes a she who becomes the love interest, and it's
also becomes Pulitzer's daughter. So it changes. But no, the movie is great in its own way. But then, if you love vocals, like I really do enjoy vocals. I enjoy instrumentation too, but the vocals are just, I feel. The talent all the way around in the Broadway play is so much better. So don't ruin the movie by watching the Broadway play first.
All right, sounds good. So
that was off topic.
That's okay. That totally works. We're not here to keep to a strict code. We talk about all things music. That's what our Sidebar podcast is for. But to close out this segment, we're going to take one last break and we're going to let Keiran pick the song that we're going to be listening to on our Spotify version of this. So, Keiran, what song are we going to be listening to?
All right, DJ Keiran's Side Note. In the making, between some breaks and stuff, which is, ironically, during our breaks, we don't just say, here's a break. Okay, welcome back. No, we actually take a second here, because sometimes you need it. I should have taken the break opportunity to put on some chapstick, and here we are. I didn't. Instead, we were doing this. I was showing David a song by the Foo Fighters, which I meant to say earlier that during the Kennedy Center honors for Led Zeppelin, they played Ramble On, and it was great, incredible. Awesome. Who doesn't love the Foo Fighters? But we weren't really talking about them today, pre-2000s. Well, they're in a medium zone.
Yeah, they kind of fit.
This song is from the album Concrete and Gold, which came out in 2015.
2018.
No, it's not that. No, I don't know.
2017
well, you'll find out in a minute yourself, listener. But anyway. The very first song on their album is called T-Shirt, and it's only, I said it was 40 seconds long, but I think it might be longer, David. You just looked at it.
Let me check. A minute and 20.
Yeah, so take a minute and 20 after we finish up here and then go on some concluding notes or whatever. But this song is an amazing, glorious, amazing piece of rock goodness. It's hard to describe. It's too short, but it's an experience. It's a minute and 20-second experience.
All
Go
right, yeah.
ex-
So we're gonna
we'll
we're
see.
gonna put on for those of you on Spotify, we're gonna be listening to "T-Shirt" by Foo Fighters, and for those of you tuning in through YouTube, link down below.
Have fun.
Start watching on Spotify so you don't have to click the link.
Or keep watching here and just click the links.
And
We're
you could
okay with that too.
see our Northern Pride garbs.
Oh yeah.
All
Yes,
right.
they've never won a Super Bowl.
All right, we'll start listening
okay,
now.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah. And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for today's podcast. Covered a lot of great topics today. Going over our favorite pre-2000s bands, talking about our favorite cover songs, favorite lyric lines. Honestly, just a great way to help us get to know Keiran, Adrian, and myself a little bit more. So thanks for checking it all out. Once again, there will be a Spotify playlist, a podcast playlist. You'll find it under my band's Spotify page. Just look for podcast playlists, and we'll be putting in a lot of songs that we mentioned today, as well as some extras, just to help you get a little bit well-rounded with the bands we grew up with and we know and love. I'm going to give Keiran a little bit of time just to shout out himself. Tell us a little bit about your Instagram handle, stuff like that.
So you can find me on Instagram at KC Gannon Music, nowhere else because I hate social media.
Fair enough.
Number two, I've just been working with everybody. I've been kind of like a background member of Avenue K, this band. Not super active, but you guys might hear that changing in a little bit. We've got little stuff in the works, three of us especially. So keep your eyes out for any new Sounds of Stasis projects that I will be part of.
Yeah, and you guys go for it, please.
Thanks for listening. Yeah, that's it. Go ahead.
All right, cool. And you guys already know where to find Adrian, Avenue K, his band. What was it, Gannon Brothers, at Gannon Brothers on Instagram, right?
No, it's Adrian _Sky_guitar.
Yes, thank you. Okay, good. We'll be.
We were. I did have that page for a while. I have had so many Instagram pages since I started playing guitar. Like, I don't. Here's what it is. I always follow meme pages, and then like my Instagram feed ends up being nothing but memes, and it's like I want it to be balanced between memes, music,
time to start over,
like, personal stuff, and it's just like time to start over.
But yeah, you guys know where to find him. Yeah, that's about it for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun. And we'll catch you next time on Project S.I.D.E.B.A.R.
See you later.